Imagine waking up before the sun. Not because you want to, not because you're healthy and motivated and ready to seize the day, as modern productivity people like to say. No, you wake up because something cold is touching your face. Maybe rain dripping through the roof. Maybe your goat breathing directly into your ear. Or maybe your wife gently informing you that if you do not get up right now, the Lord's field will not harvest itself. Welcome to medieval harvest season. For peasants in medieval Europe, harvest time was the busiest and most exhausting part of the entire year. It was the moment everything depended on. If the harvest failed, people starved. If the weather turned bad, people starved. If insects arrived, people starved. Honestly, medieval history involves a surprising amount of starving. And so every year, as summer slowly turned into autumn, villages became giant outdoor workplaces. Everyone worked. Men, women, old people, children. Even people who were probably one cough away from death were still expected to carry grain around. There were no weekends. There were no vacations. There was definitely no mental health day. The wheat did not care about your feelings. A medieval peasant's day during harvest season usually began sometime around 4 or 5 in the morning. There were no alarm clocks, of course. Most people woke naturally, usually because the rooster outside had once again decided to scream at the sky for no reason. Inside the house, things were not exactly comfortable. Most peasants lived in tiny wooden homes with dirt floors and roofs made from straw. Smoke from the cooking fire often filled the room because chimneys were either terrible or completely missing. So every morning began with smoke in your eyes and probably a chicken standing somewhere it should not be standing. The beds were simple piles of straw stuffed into rough fabric sacks. Over time, the straw became dusty, itchy, and full of tiny insects that considered your body their personal buffet. Bed bugs were everywhere. Fleas were everywhere. There's a very good chance that at least one animal was sleeping inside the house with you during colder months. In some homes, the family cow was basically a roommate. Still, there was no time to complain. Outside, the harvest was waiting. The fields stretched across the countryside in long golden rows. Wheat, barley, oats, rye. Entire villages depended on these crops surviving the next few weeks. Harvest season was not gentle work. Peasants cut grain using small curved tools called sickles. It sounds simple until you realize they had to bend over for hours and hours every single day under the sun. Your back hurt. Your hands hurt. Your knees hurt. Even your eyebrows probably hurt. And this went on for weeks. Modern people sometimes romanticize medieval farming. They picture peaceful villages and happy farmers singing while birds fly overhead. Real harvest season was closer to a giant sweaty emergency. The weather controlled everything. If heavy rain arrived too early, crops could rot. If the grain stayed damp, mold spread quickly. If strong winds came, entire fields could collapse before harvest. Every dark cloud in the sky probably caused at least 3 peasants to panic immediately. And while all this was happening, the lord of the manor still expected his share. That was one of the cruelest parts of medieval peasant life. Most peasants did not actually own the land they worked on. The fields belonged to nobles or landlords. Peasants farmed the land in exchange for protection and permission to live there, which sounds fair at first, until you realize the protection mostly involved the lord sitting in a large house while you harvested grain like an exhausted scarecrow. After the harvest, peasants had to give part of their crops away as taxes or rent, sometimes a large part. So imagine spending weeks breaking your body in the fields only to watch carts carry away much of the food afterward. Not exactly motivating. And yet the work never slowed down. After cutting the grain, peasants bundled it into large sheaves and carried them across the fields. This was heavy work, especially for older villagers. Children helped too. Not because medieval parents believed strongly in teaching responsibility. Mostly because they needed every available human being with functioning arms. Even very young children scared birds away from crops by shouting, waving sticks, or throwing stones. Which honestly sounds like medieval babysitting. Meals during harvest season were quick and simple. Most peasants ate dark bread, onions, cabbage, porridge, and maybe a little cheese if they were lucky. Meat was rare for ordinary people. Fresh, clean water was also surprisingly difficult to find in many places, so people often drank weak ale instead. Yes, children drank ale. It was usually low in alcohol, but still. Imagine explaining medieval lunch to a modern school principal. The work continued until sunset. Sometimes later, as evening arrived, exhausted villagers slowly returned home, carrying tools over aching shoulders. Their clothes smelled like dirt, sweat, smoke, and probably sheep. And remember, bathing was not exactly convenient. A full bath required heating huge amounts of water by hand. So during harvest season, many peasants simply remained dirty for long periods. Very dirty. The kind of dirty where modern soap would surrender immediately. Inside the home, supper cooked slowly over the fire while family members repaired tools, prepared grain, or talked quietly about the next day's work. Because there was always more work tomorrow. Always. Harvest season was a race against time itself. Winter was coming. And unlike modern winters, medieval winter did not mean cozy sweaters and holiday movies. It meant hunger, cold, disease, and surviving only on whatever food the village managed to store before the weather turned. So every bundle of grain mattered. Every hour mattered. Every sunny day mattered. As darkness filled the little house and smoke drifted toward the ceiling, exhausted peasants finally collapsed onto their straw beds. Outside, the village became quiet. The fields rested under the moonlight. And somewhere in the darkness, the rooster was probably already preparing to ruin tomorrow morning.